Their town board meeting for February 23rd to order. Would everybody please stand for the pledge? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty
and justice for all.
Before we have announcements, we have a public hearing open for our local law authorizing the enforcement of provisions of the Dutchess County enhanced 9/11 sign laws. Does anyone in the public want to make any comments? I'm going to leave it open until we vote, or
Sure,
close
why
it
don't we
now?
do that?
Leave it open, see if anyone shows up. Okay, I have a couple of announcements. Taxes are due by the last day of February, the 28th, without penalty. And the last day to file exemptions with the assessor's office is Monday, March 2nd, because the first is on a Sunday. And that's exemptions for Star, Senior, Vet, wholly exempt, ag exempt, anything. So if you think you're exempt or have an exemption, please file it with the assessor's office before the 2nd of March. Does anybody else have any announcements? Okay, we have a presentation tonight from Eric Kiviat of Hudsonia on the CEA for the, what are we calling it, the northeastern part of Rhinebeck? And hi, Eric. Come on up.
Well, thank you for
Eden, we'll call it
inviting me. To get the right distance here. So the CAB asked Hudsonia to prepare a preliminary report analyzing the potential for establishing a critical environmental area in the northeastern part of the town of Rhinebeck. And this is, I know you've all seen the report, but I'll just mention a few things briefly. This area, which is not set in stone, obviously, but it's our preliminary recommendation. It's been discussed with the CAB. It's bordered by the town of Milan on the west, Route 308 on the north, 9G on the west, and the Rhinebeck town line and Slate Quarry Road on the south. So that's actually the Clinton town line and Slate Quarry Road on the south. This area came up as having certain distinctions several years ago when Hudsonia did the overall town habitat map and analysis for Rhinebeck. I believe that was 2007, if I remember correctly. I'll tell you in a moment. 2007 is when we submitted the report. So a few of the numerous natural features that are noteworthy here are, has the largest area of contiguous forest in the town. It's over 1,000 acres of essentially unbroken forest. It has more than 30 known vernal pools, or intermittent woodland pools, which are the breeding habitat for several kinds of amphibians that are of conservation concern. It has 25 upland meadows, which vary quite a lot. Some of those are still cropland. Most of them are abandoned farmland or shrubland, mixture of herbaceous and shrubland habitat. And those meadows are important for a variety, many different kinds of plants and animals particularly. And the last habitat that I'll mention is there are 6 what we call kettle shrub pools. I believe they're concentrated in this area where the gravelly glacial outwash soils are. These are the potential core habitat of the Blanding's turtle. And Blanding's turtles have been seen in this area, although very little at this point is known about how much of a population there is. We believe there's a population, but it hasn't been studied yet. So we identified some of the noteworthy features of this area back in 2007. This isn't a completely de novo concern on Hudsonia's part, but with the interest of the CAB and some new information about this area, we have prepared this initial report that identifies this as a potential critical environmental area, which is a designation that the town board can create under SECRA. And I'll just back up here for a moment. Critical environmental areas, or areas of critical environmental concern, as they're also called, are allowed under SECRA, and they can be either an area with noteworthy natural features that the municipality considers of particular importance, or an area of environmental hazard that the municipality wishes to call out so that everyone is aware of it and it gets some additional attention during land use planning. In this case, of course, this is an area of noteworthy natural features, and the critical area designation does not require the town or anyone else to do anything in particular. It simply calls this area out as receiving somewhat more consideration during any SECRA process that is invoked for other reasons in the course of land use planning. So this is not a regulatory designation. It's not a legal designation. It is simply a way of raising awareness about some particular positive or negative values, in this case positive values that an area has. I think that's all that I want to say by way of introduction, but I'm certainly happy to answer your questions. I will say that the CAB and Hudsonia have been discussing some additional work on this area, some field work, because we feel that if the town board is going to consider a critical environmental area designation, that it's important for everyone to have more concrete information. This map here is simply drawn from our 2007 townwide habitat map. It has not been updated, and I think it's appropriate in this case because of the potential controversies about the designation of a CEA and some of the land use issues in this area that the town and other people involved have additional information about the area. So we are hoping to get out there this spring, pending arrangements through the CAB to fill in some of the information gaps and to confirm some of the values that that we think this area has that are not verified yet.
I guess I have two questions. One, if you were going to, and that's roughly maybe a quarter of the town?
I think it's a little less, but I don't have an exact number in my head.
Let's say it's 30%
Sure.
of the town. If you were to take another 30% of the town, or divided the town, say, 4 ways, wouldn't you find the same results for every third of the town?
No, I don't think so. You know, let me give you the exact language here. We did identify 2 areas of conservation concern in this part of the town in the 2007 report. We called 2 priority conservation areas is the term that we used in the report. We just named those arbitrarily, Slate Quarry and Hilltop, but they were based on the finding of certain habitats and certain aggregations of habitats. And one of those, of course, is the very extensive area of unbroken forest. So
Recollection is in 2007, you said the area west of Route 9 was also a key area, and big forests and wetlands, that was a critical area.
yeah, I don't have that information in my head. I haven't looked at the 2007 report recently,
But do you think this area is
the area,
more...
let me just mention that the area west of Route 9, entirely apart from Hudsonia's work, is a part of the state coastal zone. And so it has some concerns that were in place a number of years ago, and that may have been part of what we discussed in the report.
But at this point, you can't tell us that this area is more critical than other areas in the town.
In the town? Well, I think that's what we're saying by recommending that the town board designate this as a CEA, is that it is more critical.
Than the rest of the town?
Yes. We would, we do want to get out there and develop some additional information, and if we and you find at that point that this is not an appropriate designation to make, then that can be the conclusion that you reach.
And the additional work that you would do, is that in the fee already we agreed
No,
to pay you?
this would involve an additional fee.
What's the process, Eric? What are you proposing next?
Well, we've just begun discussing that, so I don't have a, sure, go ahead, Ryan.
And-
Yeah.
And I just have another question. I know you said that a critical environment designation isn't a legal designation, but why would we want to consider that? What is it?
Well, it's a legal designation in the sense that, I'm out of my league here, pardon the pun, but it's a legal designation in the sense that SECRA, which is a law, allows the municipality to make this designation, but it doesn't impose any new laws or regulations on this area or on the lands that private or public owners hold in that area. It's simply, let me see if there's some language in our report here that may be helpful. A critical environmental area is a geographic area designated by the municipality because of special natural or cultural characteristics. The purpose of the designation is to alert landowners, developers, planners, and regulatory agencies, of which the town board is one, to the features of concern so that harm to important areas can be minimized or environmental hazards can be avoided. And then we cite the authorizing part of SECRA here to, if anyone wants to.
Thank you.
Good evening, Supervisor. Good evening, Board. Hi, Ryan Dowden, Chairman of the Conservation Advisory Board, who is working with Hudsonia based on what has been charged to us in the comprehensive plan, the new zoning code of looking at our town, examining our town for CEAs or critical environmental areas. I think just by looking at this map, this is quite a large stretch of land. We can cut this down. I mean, those are things that we can speak with Eric about and Hudsonia about when we sort of, as I like to call it, phase 2 with field work for the spring of this year, and that is a topic of discussion that will occur at our March board meeting when we discuss with Hudsonia if there are specific areas within this area that we want them to focus on. If we want them to focus on Hilltop, because it is a priority conservation area, we can then get a sense or a better report of the species, plant life, animal life, so on and so forth, that exists there, and that should be reviewed or have special consideration when development is proposed. So, I mean, looking at this, yes, this is a huge area, but it can be minimized or shortened, or, I hate using this term, but cookie cuttered to the point where we can focus on specific areas within this larger area, from the borders of the town of Milan, as well as 308 and so on and so forth. And to sort of get back to what you asked, Joe, I don't know if it's more of a critical environmental area. We felt that, being that this is the one area that the board felt to take on first, being that in the comprehensive plan, we need to plan out or suggest areas to be examined. So we felt this was an area to start and get our first CEA. We do have others planned, which we will probably be back to the board later on this year, potentially next year. But I think that's a topic for discussion down the road. So hopefully we will be able to begin talks with Hudsonia for field work and get things underway for the spring of 2015. And also at the end, at the end of the report, and this report will be made available for the town hall, and whoever wants to come in and view it, the procedures is for establishing the CEA, and that would be something most likely we would have to come back to you in April and begin the process.
Thank you.
That process.
Ryan, let me ask you this. If somebody's planning a project in a town, and it's a big project, I guess CEQA would always be involved.
Yes, absolutely.
And wouldn't they have to do a specific study with respect to that site? Why is this necessary, doing all this work, if when somebody's proposing a project, they have to do the CEQA on their nickel?
I think because that is just their own land, or wherever the application exists, and this is also something, the critical environmental area, this is also something that is within the zoning law, the comprehensive plan that this town board passed and designated to us as the Conservation Advisory Board to take up and move forward on. So we felt that this is a necessary project to do, because we are charged to do it
Yeah,
as
we-
a
certainly
board.
Give you a context to see where a project within the area how it would fit, if it would fit.
It would fit, but also, it also, in the report, it does not hinder development. It's just another tool and resource within the seeker process that allows a landowner, a developer, as well as this board, our planning board, to know what exists there, plant life, species, and also especially since a good portion of where our water comes from that feeds the wells of this town comes, hopefully, and hopefully our report will say, it comes from here. A good portion of the Landsman Kill comes through here. A lot of Crum Elbow Creek, which feeds this side of the town of Rhinebeck and into the town of Clinton, exists here. And we felt that by knowing how intricate, how everything is working in this area, is very important to how everything, the sort of environment or the ecology of how the town of Rhinebeck moves.
So it's an inventory, really, of an area that we could use for our land use processes down the road.
An inventory, a resource that if, if someone needs to know where a certain species is, especially I think any developer or landowner would want to know where the Blandings turtle is, and where it's moving through. And also within seeker, there is also the part 1, 2, and sometimes 3 of the full EAF. And that's also in the seeker process. And this critical environmental area study would be there mostly for the planning board or the town of Rhinebeck's use when reviewing applications for it, either on Hilltop or the various other roads in this area for this one.
Go back to Mr. Gelb's question of a moment ago. When individual projects come before the town for planning, if information like this is not available, it often is not discovered during the planning process. My experience with land use planning is that it's important to have a certain amount and certain kinds of information in advance so that the town agencies know which questions to raise during the secret process. And that's really what we're aiming at here, is to allow the town to be better informed about its resources so that you can enter the secret process for a major project, for example, with a head start.
But you've been hired by our planning board, right, as a consultant on
In other matters,
on
correct.
specific
Yeah.
projects?
Yes, that's correct.
And and did any of these involve a review, a CEQA review as to what the resources were, what the project might do with respect to the resources?
Well, most of what Hudsonia does is related to that issue. What are the resources and how can they be protected, or how can impacts upon them be minimized? However, often during a secret process for a land use proposal, Hudsonia is not involved. We're rarely involved in these. I'm not saying we wouldn't want to be, but we're rarely called in these situations in Rhinebeck or anywhere else. And it's common for either there to be no biological consultant, or for there to be a consultant who doesn't have the depth of experience and knowledge that Hudsonia has in these matters. And so the kinds of issues that we're dealing with here, the importance of the vernal pools, the importance of the kettle shrub pools, whether or not there's a Blandings turtle population, on and on. These kinds of questions simply don't come up often because no one knows to ask them.
Is this more detail of the study that we did in 2007? Is that
Yes, it is. We're drilling down into this particular part of the town in more detail. That's correct.
Okay. Now, we had to do a habitat study for the park.
For Thompson Mazzarella, yes.
Right.
Mhm.
What are you going to do with habitat with this in your proposal?
Not sure I understand the question.
Are you going to be doing any habitat study-like stuff as you develop the CEA?
To think how to answer that question. This is a habitat map, okay?
Right.
In 2006, 2007, we were able to field check about half of the acres that we mapped based on landowner permission to access their property and so on. There are a couple of things. This is now 8 years later. Some of the habitats have changed. So one thing that's important is to have some updated information. Another is that this map is really a habitat map. It's not it's not a biological survey or an inventory in a literal sense. In other words, in the 2007 study, we didn't, because it would have cost millions of dollars for the whole town, we didn't set out to try to discover all the kinds of plants and animals that are in the town or in a part of the town. We looked at it on a habitat basis, on this particular.
So you said it's likely that such and such an animal.
That's correct, yes.
So, okay,
Yeah.
so it's probability.
So that allows the planning board or another town agency or the DEC or someone else to say, okay, here is a land use project that's proposed. It could be a road, it could be a mine, it could be a subdivision, it could be something else. This map gives us a starting point to say this particular area is likely to have certain species of conservation concern or something else of concern, and these are the kinds of questions we want to raise under SECRA during the planning process.
Okay.
And so we're going to do part of that. If we're able to move on and do phase 2 of this study, we're going to do part of that. We're not going to, again, we're not going to go out and try to discover everything. We're going to focus on those features and species that we think are most important for conservation and planning.
Do you tie in any way with the students from, I think it's Albany or RPI, or that have been studying the vernal pools every year?
Well, there's one student, Jill Bonatatabus, who was separately, who volunteered on another Hudsonia project, so I know her fairly well. She's finishing her master's thesis, I believe it's at SUNY Albany, and that is based on the vernal pools and the vernal pool amphibians in the town of Rhinebeck. I don't offhand, because I haven't spoken with Jill in a while about her project, you know, how much of it is in this area.
Well, I don't think any of it's in that. I think it's all to the
That may
the west
may
of
well
it.
be. I mean, we do know there are over 30 vernal pools, potential amphibian breeding pools that Hudsonia discovered during this habitat mapping process. There could very well be twice as many because they're usually under the forest canopy and we can't see them all on satellite imagery.
One last question, and I'll
Sure.
let you go. The other couple weeks ago, Ryan said, when we were discussing this, said there was possibility of doing the landfill as a CEA.
Bruce, I can, that can be a critical environmental area. It just doesn't have to be the landfill. It could be that area, that stone church, that could be taken a look at. I mean, if we want to talk about CEAs and what the CAB has sort of foreseen to look at specific areas, we have looked at Old Post Road and as well Mount Rutson, because as we know, Snyder Swamp, that is a huge, it's a huge swamp, one, but it handles a lot of our runoff from the storms and we have not considered that part of town yet. We were just trying to get our feet on the ground and moving with this area, but that low location very well can be another area of interest.
So conceptually, the whole town could be CEAs eventually. I think that's what Joe and I are asking.
It could be, I don't know, that's a very long road, and that is certainly something that would require a huge amount of funding. There is the coastal areas, which Eric mentioned before. which is from the Hudson River, our side of the Hudson River, to Route 9, which is our LWRP. That is, has its own sort of umbrella from the state. And that could be something that could be looked into. I was, as chair and as the board, was feeling that more we get to the areas of the town that have not had that umbrella from the state, or, you know, really hasn't been looked at for quite a number of years. Where I've looked back in the files, most of the studies, besides the 2007 into 2009, especially with the changing of zoning, the comprehensive plan, most of the studies have come from the 90s, the 1990s. That's a decade, two decades old, and I think a lot of things have changed in the municipality, environmental-wise, since then. So,
Such as?
you never know. You never know what you will find,
Okay.
development-wise,
So you suspect a lot's
things
changed?
like that.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Alan?
I have a question. You mentioned the water supply, which interests me. Are you going to be mapping any of that in this new study you're proposing?
That is something that we hope to find out, because from previous studies from the 90s, and I believe there are some maps on record that says that a good portion of the aquifer that feeds a majority of the wells of the town of Rhinebeck is located in this part of town. And in addition, we have the Landsman Kill, and as I said, the Crum Elbow. So by getting a better sense with this study, we can find out how certain ecosystems surrounding the Landsman Kill, as well as the various waterways and intermittent streams, how healthy they are, and how they are interacting in that part of the town.
I'd like to point out that the extensive forests in these areas are very important for maintaining water quantity and quality.
Does your expertise cover underground water, the aquifers?
No, that's
That's not your expertise?
that's really out of Hudsonia's expertise. I mean, we could, I don't think it's justified in this situation, but if there were a need or an interest in understanding more about groundwater resources, there are hydrologists and hydrogeologists who specialize in
Oh, okay,
that.
that's
Yeah.
the expertise, I don't know.
We wouldn't suggest that the aquifer by going under, but by going under the ground, but from, Eric has in the report here, in the preliminary report, the crest, ledge, and talus. These rocky formations come from when the glaciers moved thousands of years ago, and as well from glacier melting, which forms aquifers and which forms water supplies. So that would be something that could be found in the study as well.
I can make one simple comment about groundwater. There are some fairly extensive areas of Hoosick soil. I think that happens to be where the gravel and sand resources are essentially in this area. Those soils and subsoils tend to be very rich in groundwater. So if someone said to me, let's look at the groundwater resources of the town or of this area, that's where I would start. But it may not be the only groundwater-rich portion of this or of the town. It certainly is very likely to have a lot of groundwater. We do see that in other parts of the county, such as the valley that starts in Milan and runs down through the town of Clinton, along, including Long Pond and Mud Pond and Silver Lake, for example, and a very extensive gravel deposits that are somewhat similar to these. We also see a lot of this kind of material in the town of LaGrange and along Sprout Creek and Fishkill Creek down in the southern part of the county.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Eric, Brian, thank you.
Thank you, board, and we hope to be back sometime in late March or the beginning of April with sort of a phase 2 idea from our talks with Hudsonia, and hopefully we will have something to present to the board then, so this spring we can get some people out there and get some field work started, and we can start the main process of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night. Moving on. Does anybody have committee or liaison reports? Alan, Joe, Bruce? I don't.
Joe, should I say what happened with the dog coop, or?
Yeah, you can.
All right, well, for some reason, Bobby called me and said the dog coop will probably be ready the end of this week.
He's had a lot of snow issues, a little bit of snow issues.
I don't know.
God, it's-
Thank you.
It's impressive,
Yes,
even in the face of all the weather.
yes. Should we move on to our resolutions?
Okay.
Resolution 2015-068. I'll make a motion to approve our preliminary abstract vouchers 183 through 222, 35 checks totaling $869,481.64. May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? I have some discussion.
Let me just point out that this includes the $67,000 that we would pay in connection with the paver grant, which we're going to vote on later. So
Right.
just assuming we don't approve that, that should come off, but hopefully we'll approve it. I just wanted to note that.
Thank you. For the public, I was going to note, this is an incredibly large voucher because we're paying out our contracted contracts with the 3 fire departments, Hillside, Rhine Cliff, the Village. We also have the money we collect for the Morton Library and the Star Library. So we have about $700,000 of funds that we collect for other entities. And we have a couple of big ticket items, the loan for the paver and our salt, which has been challenging this year. We're all facing salt shortages. The discussion I want to have is that in here is included from the village of $5,700 in hydrant rentals. I've asked the mayor for a contract for that. It turns out that we're renting hydrants that don't have adequate pressure, that are, so I wanted to find out what you wanted to do about that. I've been disputing, out of the 19 that we pay, we're also renting one that services the village water department, one that services the village highway department. We have 2 on Old Post Road that are tubercular and have no pressure or inadequate pressure to fill up our tankers. And we're renting, for fire protection, 11 hydrants on High Lee and North Hinterlands when no other area in the town has hydrants for fire protection. And in fact, we buy pumpers to fight all of our fires. So there's been no response from the village on any contract for this. Our attorney feels that $300 a month rental for hydrants is on the high side. So I would like to hold it back until we get some response.
Agree.
I'm fine with that, too. And, the other thing is, a while back, they came to us for the dry hydrants, and we created a capital fund for it and everything, but nothing ever happens.
I'm sorry, what dry?
They wanted to put dry hydrants around in different places so they could pump out of the ponds and streams. So, I don't know. I'm fine with what you want to do.
I'll hold it back. I'll let them know that we've asked for this information. We've been asking for information for the county information on the fire protection. It's not forthcoming. Does anybody else have a different feeling?
I don't have a different feeling, but the ones on Hiley, those are working?
They are working, and I don't know why they were put in, nor why we need 11 on a street for fire protection when we've funded pumpers. We have everything else in the town fire protection district or town-wide is fought with pumper trucks. So would one be sufficient in that area to rent for fire protection? Or would it be, should they be metered? I don't know.
I guess I'm raising it because I thought I had heard in the past that maybe we ought to create a hydrant district on
We could, but-
Hiley,
We could, or should it be charged back to their water users? Why were the hydrants put there? Is it a fire protection cost or a water user cost?
Since none of us were on the board at that time, we don't.
Well, I'm going to
who
post
knows?
some planning board notes
Who
and see if
knows?
there's anything. But we've asked for information and it hasn't been, I would move to hold this
So
aside.
if we hold it back, it'll start a discussion.
Yep.
So I'd like to make
So we
a
take
motion
those
to,
off.
I'd like to make a motion to amend this resolution to total, I'm sorry, just give me 1 second here, 34 checks totaling $863,781.64, holding aside $5,700 from hydrant rental from the village. May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And we still have the other motion on the table to pass to pay for these vouchers. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Thank you. I'll make a motion for Resolution 2015-069 to approve preliminary abstracts, 2 checks totaling $1,928.42. May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Recreation and oil? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. I will make a motion to, for preliminary capital projects accounting payable extracts, 1 check totaling $6,218.20. It's for Wesson and Sampson for the park. May I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm
Any
going to
opposed?
abstain on that.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Joe's abstaining, so moved. I'd like to make a motion for our Resolution 2015-071 for budget transfers and amendments. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
What year is this for?
This is last year.
2014?
This is cleaning up some rec money. We were late in getting accounting from that. Any other questions?
Zoning.
The zoning is correcting a correcting a mistake from January. It was put in the wrong area. And since we didn't get accounting on recreation or for the concession stand, we feel that revenues for the concession stand are around $3,200 for August and higher for July. And with labor and expenses, we're about at a break even, but she still has to do 1 more month for this.
Okay, just the count that I'd gotten was 13,000, was the gross from the concession stand, around there.
This is just 1 month, so
Okay.
we have some other months to go.
Okay.
All right, any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? So moved. Okay, we're up to our local law, but I'd like to, we have a public hearing open for the local law authorizing the enforcement and provisions of Dutchess County enhanced 9/11 signage. Is there any questions or comments from the, from
From
anyone?
the what?
from anybody,
Well, let's see
from
if the-
you, from the public. It's a public
I
hearing.
just, let me spend a minute just explaining why we did this. The county passed a law more than 10 years ago requiring standards for signage. And we've had complaints from the various emergency response people, fire department, EMTs, that, and also from people delivering pizzas, for that matter, that can't find addresses very easily in the town. And when I was campaigning in the last election, I was looking for certain addresses. They're virtually impossible to find some addresses. There are mailboxes that are the only marking for a driveway. They're on the other side of the street from the driveway in many cases. There are numbers on doors that are painted the same color as the door that you can't see from the road. There are houses that have pre-911 addresses on them, so you have the wrong number on them, and so on. So this law basically is a way to enforce the county law, which requires labeling. The state law also requires 4-inch numbers on homes now. It's part of the new building code, but it applies to all buildings. And we've added a couple of twists, one of which is that we want to see the numbering of homes that are more than 50 feet from the road indicated by a number that's out at the road, either on the mailbox, if the mailbox is on the same side of the street as the driveway, or on a post. And finally, and again, I saw a lot of examples of this, including on my own property, which is, I have a driveway that goes to 2 numbers, and it's hard to tell which way to go in the driveway when there's a fork, so that the forks have to be labeled as well. So that's what this creates. We've created a way to enforce it, and we're using the same fine schedule as the county has in their law, which up till now has not been enforced in the town of Rhinebeck.
Thank you, Alan. I also, just for the public, I want to say that our emergency services coordinators have asked that we do this. This isn't like we're pulling it out of a hat. They've come to us and said that they have difficulty finding people in emergency situations. There have been people having heart attacks that they haven't been able to find, so this is for public safety.
There's one other point, and that is that even though some people have come back and said, well, I don't care if they can't find me. The problem is if your house isn't labeled clearly, you're also going to slow response to your neighbors. Because, if you're looking for a number and you can't find the one on that house, you don't know that it's the one you're looking for, and it slows you down. So the idea is, if there's uniformity, if there's consistency, then there'll be more rapid response.
I have a couple of, a couple of questions. Did you check with the highway superintendent or our zoning enforcement officer on this?
I talked to the zoning enforcement officer.
And is this in compliance with our setback requirements for our zoning law for road signs?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're fine with that?
Now, the enforcement of this is would be Ed Maddox, right?
Yeah.
Code enforcement officer.
Okay.
Yeah, but we can also appoint, at some future time, we can appoint other people to
We can.
enforce it as well, yes.
Oh, good.
No, I'm in favor of it, but the one thing that caught my eye, at the end of it, we say that a copy of this local law and the Duchess law shall be posted on the town's official website. We put on, I think, our entire code. I don't know if what this provision means. Does this mean that there's a separate designation of these 2 laws forever on the website, or should that be limited to 90 days, 60 days? Because once we mandate by law something is posted on the website, presumably forever, unless we put, I think, don't we clutter up the website so that over the years there may be lots of laws? Why? I know this is a new law, and maybe for 6 months it ought to have special prominence on the town website, but after 6 months, do we want to clutter up the website with the text of these two laws? I raised the question as to,
I don't think that's a problem. I think, I think people moving into the town 10 years from now will want to know what the requirements are for labeling.
right, but there are probably lots of laws like that, that people moving in want to know. I would think we would want to put a time limit.
Well, the county website has the law that they passed in 2000, under the heading of, enhanced 911 sign requirements, so, which I assume will do the same thing.
Any
Not
further
that the county
discussion?
is.
I think it's going to go into E-code eventually, so.
Yeah, it'll be
Yeah,
a
it'll be
part
on
of,
the
we'll
website.
have
So it
it.
is going to be part of our code, and the
Well, then
whole
it'll
code
be-
is part of the...
Well, then it'll be on the website.
No,
Well, it'll be on the website, but it won't be specifically designated that,
I don't think this says that. It
doesn't
says, it doesn't
require
say
that.
any specific designation. It says on the website. So once it's.
well, shall be posted. Okay, you don't read it that way, that posted means separately calling one's attention to it. If that's what we think
I don't
these
think it
words
means
mean,
that.
then I don't have a problem. That is at some point just part of our statute on the website.
Should we close the public hearing? Would you like to make a motion? Second? Second. Could you please come up and introduce yourself?
Richard Murray, Rhinebeck resident. I did read what I received in the mail, and I guess one question I have is, I clearly fit the requirements because I have a number on the side of my house. I'm within 50 feet of the road. There's going to be a lot of people who say, well, I think it fits those requirements. So obviously, there's going to be some bickering there. But are we going to have an enforcement officer go out and issue tickets?
Yes.
How will the public be notified of this for those people who don't read the website, who don't read their mail? Are they going to get a chance, a notice, a first chance to say, you need to follow these rules, please comply, we'll check again in 30 days, or are we going to ticket them?
Well, we've notified everybody by mail. And what's our mechanism for enforcement, Alan?
It'll be a citation, but I think what Richard proposed is very reasonable, a warning. I think there's discretion.
Yeah, we're not looking to raise revenue or.
It's just not a
we're
revenue.
looking. We're
Yeah,
looking
no.
to, we're looking to do what Emergency Services has asked us to do for public safety. So we'd like to get compliance.
I think to a large extent, this will be driven by observations made by emergency responders that say, I went to this road and we couldn't find or we had trouble finding an address, or we saw this, or we saw that, and then we'll go try to fix it.
Did we make a motion to close the public hearing? Second?
I did,
Yeah,
yeah.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I would like to have a motion for Resolution 2015-072.
Motion.
A second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. I'd like a motion for Resolution 2015-073, sharing of equipment pursuant to county grant for our paver.
Motion.
I'll second it. Joe, you want to?
The town of Rhinebeck, together with the towns of Milan, Amenia, and Northeast, were awarded a $265,000 grant to purchase certain items of equipment, a paver, a roller, and a trailer. And the four towns will share that equipment. Ultimately, each town will be reimbursed by the county for the cost of the equipment, but we have to buy it first and then submit an invoice to the county. This resolution authorizes the signing of an intermunicipal agreement with the 3 other towns governing the maintenance and the sharing of the equipment, how that will be done. It was run by the highway superintendents of the 4 towns as to how they would share the equipment, how they would care for the equipment. So that's all set forth in here. And this resolution authorizes the advance by each town of $67,000 to purchase the equipment. Once the equipment is arrived, and at that point, we would forward the invoices, purchase invoices, and the shipping documents to the county, and presumably the county will pay us, hopefully promptly.
Joe, one thing I'd like to ask, I think this is great, mindful of needing to come up with savings every year of 1% of our levy. Would you start working on, once this is, I think this will be applicable because it's a consolidation, and I think whatever savings we realize from this can apply to next year's what we
Yes.
need to save. So I'll update you more on this year's, but that's just something to be mindful of.
Right, and I think we have to make a decision whether, for purposes of calculating savings, we should go in with the county, which is putting together, my understanding is a consolidated sharing statement by all those towns that decide to join in that, or we should go alone and specify our own
Well,
savings.
our savings would be because we will now be able to do paving jobs that we had to contract out in the past. We could do them with our own highway department people.
Right, and the county can also use that as part of this
Okay, got it.
composite. So we don't lose anything if we go in with the county. And I guess this is, my understanding is preliminary, but if for some reason we don't have the requisite percentage of savings, if we go in with the county, the county would cover, the composite would cover it, so we get the benefit of other towns' savings. But this is a little bit down the road as to which way we ought to go.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. I'll make a motion for Resolution 2015-074 for our participation in the Dutchess County All Hazards Mitigation Plan. May I have a second?
Second.
This is something that I'm going to attend if anyone else would like to. Kathy's going to attend. Henry Campbell's going to attend. I think our ZEO or CEO is also attending. It's mandatory if we want to get certain grants that we're a part of this program, so we figured that we would do it. I spoke with Cheryl Begor at the county, who's running this under, Bill Beal's Department of Emergency Services, and this resolution is asking that we designate a primary point of contact and an alternate, and also the designated local flood plan administrator. I'm willing to be the primary point of contact as the head of emergency services. Henry Campbell and Darren Forbes would be secondary as our emergency services coordinator, and our CEO, Ed Maddock, administers our flood plain within his office, so we should designate him for that, unless anybody else wants to step forward and do it or volunteer. That's what I'm recommending.
So we would write those names in,
No, there's.
and then we would pass the resolution with those names in it.
Yeah, I think so, or it's,
Yeah,
I don't know that we even need to. You're giving me permission to enter into this. I have paperwork here for the county that I can fill out.
No, but I think to pass a resolution with just blanks in it, I think we got to fill those
Okay.
blanks in.
Let's do it. So we have an open motion. I'm amending it to designate the supervisor as the primary point of contact, our emergency services coordinators as the secondary point of contact, and our code enforcement officer as a designated local floodplain administrator under the National Floodplain Insurance Plan. May I have a second for that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we still have an open motion on the floor to approve participation in this. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Thank you. I'll be going to a meeting next week for that. Resolution 2015-075, contract for spring installation and fall removal of our docks. May I have a motion
Motion.
and a second?
Second.
Would anybody like to speak to this? I'm aware of it. We do it every year. Bruce, anything to add? We're going with our maintenance department solicited 3 bids and have recommended that we go with Jeff Decker and Son.
Who always does it.
We always have a discussion of the taxi dock, which is the heavy one, which probably needs some work, and whether it's really worthwhile to do.
Well, I
I think a
think
couple of years, we did not put it in. We got a couple of people who complained, and we put it in. But, at some point, we got to study that, especially if it needs a lot of renovation.
We addressed that with this year's budget. We have some money in there to fix it, and our maintenance department will do that. Bobby will work on it. And I think we've heard from the waterfront committee that it's useful for, the limited access we have to the river for people in boating and kids who go fishing. It's something that a lot of people enjoy. Is there any other further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. I will make a motion for Resolution 2015-076, appointments to the Conservation Advisory Board of O'Donnell and Velarde. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I want to thank, let's appoint them first. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. We've had 2 Rhinebeck residents, Caitlin O'Donnell and Teresa Velarde, agreed to volunteer for the Conservation Advisory Board, and we'd like to thank them for stepping forward. So welcome aboard. Our last resolution is 2015-077. It's for the replacement of our pool pump. May I have a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second?
Any discussion? I assume that we're approving the low bids here, or we're,
Well, we're not doing it on the pump. The recommendation is to go with somebody who is...
not in the state of Maine.
No, that one clearly, but, right, it's about $250 more to go with a local person who specializes in pumps, and our maintenance supervisor feels that that's very important, that he can get service quickly if the pump goes down, which is very important because we'd have to close the pool if we couldn't get the service. And he is familiar with that company, which he says specializes in pumps. We really don't know that much about the out-of-state company. So for the extra $250, I would recommend that we go with the $8,500 bid as opposed to the $8,275 bid.
Great. Any other discussion?
We're keeping the old one to rebuild?
Yes, that's the plan. Now we got to get a price on that.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. New business, I have an item. Does anybody else have something?
Well, I wanted to raise one thing that's not on our discussion list. Bobby indicated that at our dock, the Coast Guard ties up its cutter from time to time and gets deliveries of things. He believes that some of the wood has been damaged a couple of weeks ago on the bulkhead. He also told me that the wood that was damaged was old and would shortly have to be replaced anyway. And he raised the question with me, should we bother to put a claim in against the Coast Guard like we did in the past? Apparently, the Coast Guard calls us every year, or calls the maintenance supervisor, to ask whether they can dock the icebreaker there. And we have given permission, although Bobby points out that our dock really was not designed to hold large ships of the size of the Coast Guard icebreaker. I'm not quite sure why we give permission. I don't remember it ever coming before the board for permission to dock there. I don't know, Bruce, you go back longer than...
You answered it. If they call somebody, they call him.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we ought to think about not giving permission. If the dock wasn't designed for it, they could dock.
Why wouldn't we want the Coast Guard to dock there? I mean, don't they also ensure safety and they're patrolling, and isn't it a courtesy? And
Well, they're breaking up the ice on the river for ships, but if our dock wasn't designed for it and the ships damaged the dock, I don't think it's a good idea. I would assume there's docking places either in Kingston that are constructed to withstand problems with big ships. You know, maybe what we can do, one, in the future, when we get the request, maybe it ought to be addressed by the Coast Guard with the town board as to what the alternatives are. So maybe we ought to put them on notice that we want to hear next year from them before we give permission. With respect to the damage now, since the wood that will have to be replaced, and it's probably a couple $1,000s, would have to be replaced shortly anyway. Do we want to bother putting a claim in with the Coast Guard?
Well, maybe you kill two birds with one stone. Tell the Coast Guard, we'd like to enhance the dock so it's safe for them.
Well, I don't
Have
think.
them pay for the enhancement.
Well, I don't think we can ever make it safe for them, because it's wood we're putting in. It's not a steel dock, so even if we replace the wood, we're never going to make it into a large ship dock.
I don't know. I'm not an expert on the
Oh,
design
okay.
of docks.
Well,
My opinion is the Coast Guard adds to the community being there. There's people go down there and see it when it comes in. Their insurance covers the damage, and we replaced the bollards last year or the year before that got ripped off. It's the river. Anything you tie up to it with the ice is going to do that. As far as if it wasn't the ice, the dock would be perfect for it. So.
so would you put the claim in for the wood that we're going to have to replace anyway in a couple of years?
Yeah, because it was damaged by the Coast Guard. There aren't any other big ships that would do that. So,
And,
they've paid for the wood before.
No, but it was a long process, as I remember it, and a lot of paperwork.
Or we could pay for it and just
Well,
look at it
that's
as
the
the cost
alternative.
of,
That's what Bobby would like to do.
the cost of doing business, and I think it is good to have the Coast
Look,
Guard
we
around.
we provide other services for them too, right? We clean up down there, we do things. So, putting in a claim for that is not unfair.
I agree with you. My
Did you
grandmother
work
was-
on the previous claim?
No.
Who did that?
No idea.
I'm sure it's in the records.
No, I have the file.
Probably Rochelle.
All right, any other, I have if you could pass that to, I'd like to bring up this resolution. It didn't make it on our agenda. Resolution 2015-078, it's that time of year when we need to engage an accountant to complete and file the report for our 2014 annual update document, the AUD, which we have to file with the controller. I would like to get this approved tonight, and it has to be filed by 90 days, so I think that's March 30th. We may need an additional 30-day extension, so I would ask that this be approved with a possible 30-day extension. I'll make a motion. May I have a second?
Second.
We didn't approve this at the reorg meeting, that we were going to retain her?
Shelley says we retain her, but I don't think we approved I don't know. Shelley asked me to do this.
Oh.
It didn't make it on the agenda. So it's DeChilli and Associates for $2,000 to compile and file our AUD for us, with an extension to April 30th, need be. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Thank you. What else do we have? We have a couple of, is there any other new business? We have a couple of discussion items. Transfer station contract renewal.
The transfer station contract with Royal expires this summer, and there's a provision that if we choose to, we have the right to extend that contract if we give them notice by April 30th. So I wanted to find out if there's any reason why we should not extend it, and this would be the time to ask them for some things that we want, to see if they'll agree with it in connection with the extension. They've already agreed that they would pay the electric cost in lieu of paying us $1,100 a month, but we have to make sure that gets implemented, because there are some rough edges on that, in that we're paying Central Hudson, they're paying Central Hudson, so that will get worked out. I have heard that the summer hours should apply for September, and they shouldn't go to winter hours on September 1st. Other than those two things, if anybody has anything, let me know, because I want to start discussions with them.
What about maintenance down there? Could they take over mowing and plowing?
We could certainly ask. The worst that could be is they say no. Now, they are supposed to plow the driveways into it. I thought that was in the contract.
No,
but I-
they sand.
What?
We get free, we're,
If we get free pickup.
we can dump our garbage there for free, and we agreed that we would plow it. They sand it.
Maybe mowing.
Who's the we, meaning the town?
No, me personally. Yes, the town.
No, yeah, I don't know. Everybody can dump their garbage, that's why it's open to the public, so I'm asking who we is. I don't think it's an off-the-wall question.
The town can
Bruce.
So that was an informal thing, because the agreement doesn't say that.
Yeah, it was informal,
Oh, okay. So that probably should go in.
because if you do the math, it's to our advantage.
Okay, so
Same with the mowing.
well, I'm just thinking about,
Yeah, I know, but
could we dump our garbage and plow but not mow? Can they take over mowing since we seem to be stretched thin for mowing in the
15
warmer
minutes
months?
in there,
Yeah, but we have,
when you do Stone Church.
I'd just like to see if they would, and we could still dump our garbage.
Right,
Bruce can still dump his garbage.
I think we got to run that by as to whether we have the right to do that under the collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah, there's that.
Anything else? Town hall furnace update.
Again, as we all know, that we are scheduled to replace the furnace this summer. There is a draft RFP and contract. I did speak with Weston and Sampson about it. They are making some last-minute changes in the documentation, and they will get us a new draft shortly. They said not to review the old draft, and then we should send it out as soon as it's ready to get bids. So I propose we have them send it out. Question I have is,
Will it cost extra if they send it out?
no, send it out in the sense that we're going to publish it in the newspaper, but we do want to send it out to certain contractors who they recommend as having expertise in it to make sure people, so that's what I mean by sending it out. I don't know the mechanism, whether John sends it out and addresses it to certain people or not. I would hope it's covered under the contract that we're paying them the $20,000 for this.
Well, let's find out, because we've seen in the past with other contracts that it's not, and we get extra charges.
Yeah, we'll ask. Question I have is our plan still to pay for this out of fund balance? I think that was my understanding.
Haven't received any grants, so.
Yeah. Let's see what it comes in as.
We tried, right?
Yes, we did.
It was recommended that we buy extra overcoats this winter.
You've got the asbestos in the contract, right?
That's my understanding, yeah. The way it works is that under the bid, the successful bidder will remove 3 glove bags of asbestos. If there are more bags, we would pay extra. And when I raised the question of who counts the bags, they said, Bobby.
How big are the bags?
I don't know. I have no
Little
idea what a
teeny
glove
bag.
bag is.
Sandwich bag. Cell tower.
Cell tower. I thought this was dead because we hadn't heard from the cell tower people for about 4 months. We submitted a contract to them. They have now revised that contract with certain changes in language. We have their draft back. I've looked at the changes they've made, and I don't think they're very substantial, and I think we will reach agreement very shortly.
I noticed that, have they agreed to pay the $1,000 to attorneys? Because Warren shouldn't do any work on this until it's escrowed, right?
No, they've agreed to pay $1,000 in the contract, but till the contract is signed, the commitment is not worth anything. Warren has put in about $840 or $812, I forget. I would recommend that we have Warren look over their comments, because they're envisioning a conference call with me and Warren, and they and their lawyers to button it down. I don't think Warren will spend more than 2 hours on.
Is this a zoning? Do we have to do a zoning amendment for this?
There will have to be a zoning amendment, and under the procedures of the planning department, Elizabeth, that you worked out with John Lyons, they would pay the escrow for that. And that would be separate. And there, I think we can ask for an escrow. I don't think we usually get escrows for contracts that we enter into with them. And I don't think we should ask for an escrow, have them pay other than this $1,000, and it shouldn't go over it. So I would propose we don't ask for any more than that commitment, and we eat the extra $100, if any.
All right.
With respect to the zoning amendment, one, we got to decide what attorney to use, and two, what that amendment is going to say. Do we just try to deal with the Stone Church property, or make it broader? And if you make it broader, I don't know why they would want to pay for that. So at least I think for that.
Wouldn't it be spot zoning if we're just doing
Well-
one property? Wouldn't we have to do everything within like a civic zone, or?
I think that's a legal question that we ought to ask the
I'd
lawyer.
like to go with Warren. I think, the practice of, as
Yeah.
great as John is, I think Warren's our town attorney, and sometimes the lines get blurred if we start using.
Right, I agree on this one, that we should go with Warren, and he'll give us advice at the time. The problem with changing all civic zones is some of them aren't appropriate. So you'd really have to look zone by zone if you're going broader than the old Stone Church Road. So I think that's down the line, and Warren will have to weigh in on the actual amendment. And hopefully that should be part of the escrow. And they're prepared to hire an outside planning consultant. I think they're going to use the consultant who did the other two modifications of the zoning law.
Okay, thank you. Cancellation of May 26, 2015 regular town board meeting. Monday is Memorial Day. Tuesday, the town hall is tied up with grievances, and then the town hall is booked pretty much for the rest of the week for court and other meetings, so we need to cancel. We don't have use of town hall for the 26th. Shelley's fine with that.
Well, can we move it to another place? I just hate to cancel town board meetings. We've canceled some. We're not planning on 2 meetings over the summer. Maybe we can do it downstairs. Maybe we can get one of the libraries to give us space. I know we used to have town board meeting once a year at the Rhinecliff Firehouse. Maybe we can do it there.
I'm fine with canceling it. How does everyone else feel? I mean, we're canceling it. I'm fine with not rescheduling.
I know I had an item for that meeting. I just can't remember what it was. I'm okay with it canceling.
I'm ambivalent.
We're canceling it. There's no motion to reschedule it.
Well, there's no motion to cancel it either.
Well,
So
it's been canceled. We don't have use of town hall.
It's a discussion item.
Right, we've
So you need a
canceled it.
resolution, I think, to cancel it. And I'm saying you could have
If we have
another
time, we can
space.
do it the next meeting.
I'd like to make
Yeah,
a
once-
motion to cancel our May 26th meeting for lack of
Well, we
use
could
of
move
town
it.
hall. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion about canceling the meeting? We don't have town hall that night.
I'm inclined to look for another place.
I would also.
You got a deadlock.
Deadlocked.
No, the motion
No.
doesn't pass.
Yeah, motion doesn't pass, we'll look for another place.
We don't have an agreement to look for another place either.
Well, I make a motion.
We're going to be here all night.
We'll have to wait till Elaine comes back.
Elaine's not available on Tuesday nights, so she wouldn't be able to attend anyway.
Have a Wednesday night.
Okay, so
You know
that's
what,
the
this is the
discussion item.
would be, what, the fourth
I'd like
or
to go back
fifth
to one meeting a month. I think the town was, many towns in this county run very well on one meeting a month. We went to a 2-meeting-a-month process during our comprehensive plan. We are constantly looking for ways of cutting. Meetings create more work for the clerk's office. It slows everything down. We should be more focused and get what we need to get done in the time we have to do it. That's my opinion.
Hard to argue with that.
We're a part-time government. Stop creating more.
Why don't we have a meeting every 2 months? Why have once a month, or once maybe every 6 months?
Because we have bills to pay every month, so we need to meet to
Oh, I
approve
see,
them.
so.
And I have to get my garbage out to the transfer station.
You have to what?
Get my garbage out to the transfer station.
Okay.
I mean, a meeting is 2 days in the clerk's office to,
And that things have to be decided collectively, so that meetings have to be held.
which I'm not against, and we do it, and we've scheduled, what did we schedule, 23 special meetings last year? We have had, several already this year, so we're not an unwillingness to meet, just I think that we need to be,
But I don't think
No.
it's good government to govern by special meetings that often happen during the day when all board members can't come, and the public can't come. If the public knows that there's a meeting at a special time, then those people who want to come can come. But these ad hoc meetings, I don't think are a good practice.
so let's not call special meetings.
Don't?
We have a special meeting called to go over our employee handbook. You want to cancel that and do it at a town board meeting night?
Whatever you want to do.
We're getting into the comedic value here, so
I have nothing else to discuss. I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn into executive session. Oh, sure. Sorry, I didn't,
Thank you. Sorry. I'll try to be brief. Joel Tyner, your humble county legislator. I just wanted to, on behalf of my good friend, Mr. Marcus Molinaro, invite everybody to his State of the County address this Wednesday, the 25th of February. Hey, stop it. At 5 p.m. at the Culinary Institute of America, the Marriott Pavilion.
Wow.
Yes, so I'll be there with bells on. I have here a little bit of a show and tell. I may have referred to this over the last month or two. This is the front page of the USA Today weekend section, and here's the front page from December 26th to 28th. And I wanted to give the county executive a little bit of credit. He kind of seems to be trying to meet me and some other people halfway. On January 29th at the Bardavon, there was a external advisory group meeting, sort of in conjunction with the Criminal Justice Council, that Senator Steve Salan headed up. And at that meeting, it was a couple hours, Steve Michio from People Incorporated spoke in front of a lot of people. And he talked about how he's heading up the mental health subcommittee for the Criminal Justice Committee Council. He talked about how in Barrett County, Texas, San Antonio, they learned pretty effectively how to divert mentally ill people from being arrested and going to jail, which is basically what this USA Today piece is about. Solutions exist but aren't used enough to elevate the mentally ill. The USA Today talks about Miami-Dade County. And 6 of us in the county legislature last month signed a letter saying, well, let's do this, because in Miami-Dade County, they shut down one of their jails, saving $12 million a year. They took their jail census from 7,800 inmates to 4,800 inmates. They trained the law enforcement officials so that there were 10,000 mental illness-related police calls in 2013, but the cops only arrested people 9 times out of 10,000 mental illness-related police calls. So I've been pushing and pushing and pushing on this, and to the county executive's credit, he actually said in front of everybody, nobody in the media has reported this, but he said, at February 25th, the State of the County address, I'm going to announce that we're going to do something about this. We're going to try to make sure that the law enforcement, the police and the sheriffs in Dutchess County are trained on how to, respond to folks who are mentally ill. The kicker is, and again, there's a $150, $200 million jail expansion looming. The kicker is, as this article points out, if there are no services to send the mentally ill folks to, it's only half of the equation to train the cops, to train the sheriff's deputies and the state troopers and the police, et cetera. And I asked Margaret Hurst, who's in charge of clinical services for the Dutchess County Department of Mental Hygiene, in November, is there funding in the 2015 Dutchess County budget for a 24-hour mental health drop-in crisis center? And to her credit, she was honest. She kind of shook her head, looked down at the floor, was like, no. So I'm glad that the county executive has, made that announcement publicly in the Bardavon in front of a lot of people, but we just have to make sure that the services are there. Otherwise, having the law enforcement officers trained is just half the equation. The other thing is this: Steve Michio from People Incorporated told everybody that it's not just Miami-Dade County. In Barrett County, Texas, San Antonio, they were going to expand the jail, but they learned how to divert mentally ill folks from being arrested and put in jail. So they had 800 empty jail beds by the time that the jail was built in Santa. 800 empty jail beds. They didn't need it. How do I know this? Honestly, I've heard, God help us all, I've even heard people like Mike Kelsey over the last couple of years talk about Barrett County, Texas, in San Antonio. But I didn't know until January 29th, that's when Steve Michio educated me and everybody else. By the time they built the jail expansion in San Antonio, they had 800 empty jail beds. So here's what I'm asking everybody in this room to consider. Given the fact that the county executive, to his credit, has told everybody he's going to try to make sure, that the cops and the police officers, the sheriff's deputies and the state troopers, everybody's trained to divert the mentally ill. So where's the funding for those mental health services, because they don't exist right now? Even the undersheriff, Kirk Imperati, told us a couple of years ago, what do you think is going to happen when you shut down Hudson River Psychiatric Center? What do you think is going to happen when Harlem Valley Psychiatric Center is shut down? They end up at our jail. That's what Kirk Imperati, the number 2 guy in the sheriff's office, told us. The Democratic caucus, open Democratic caucus. And the other piece of it is, so where's the services? And the other piece of it is, how can anybody in their right mind be for a $180 million jail expansion when even the Criminal Justice Council says 80% of Dutchess County jail inmates have substance abuse or mental health issues? All right, and I'm not even talking about the state parole violators. There's about 20 of them in the jail that the Poughkeepsie Journal has said, the National Institute of Correction has recommended $65 a day, put them in a halfway house if they fail a urine test. Not even talking about the bail loan fund that Tompkins County has, a United Way funded agency for people accused of nonviolent misdemeanors. There's about 20 of those in the county jail with bail of like $1,000 or less. Anyway, so we're having an event tomorrow. I've launched something called Dutchess Taxpayers United. It's tomorrow, 4:30 p.m. in front of the county office building, 22 Market Street. You're all invited to attend. And there's also quite a few things. I sort of keep on getting attacked and attacked and attacked over again that these things are crazy and they don't make sense. But I'm also telling you, my day job for the last 28 years is working with kids. You know, I taught in the Bronx for 5 years. I was a math teacher. I taught in the city of Poughkeepsie schools for 3 years. I was a music teacher, believe it or not, put on 2 concerts. My day job is across the river, working with at-risk youth. And I know for a fact, we would not have to spend $25, $30 million every year in the Dutchess County budget on putting kids in institutions if we put a little bit more money up front to help those kids. And if you look at Clarkstown, if you look at Esopus, if you look at West Nyack and Rockland County and that community in Ulster County, they are saving tons of money with no money down solar arrays on landfills, costing the taxpayers nothing. There's lots of ways to save money that the folks on the other side of the aisle are like, this is crazy, that'll never work. Well, they don't even bother to do the research to verify. So anyway, there's a guy named Bill Seppi who helped back in the 80s, 90s get things going with the walkway. Bill invited me to speak this past Saturday in Millbrook at the Farm and Home Center. Terry Gibson spoke in there. They're all excited about school property taxes. This group is not your average band of liberals. Why am I bringing this up to you? Because there's a number of people in that room who want the John Bonisic program. John Bonisic is a Republican state senator from across the river, somewhat similar to what Terry Gibson and Kevin Cahill have proposed. Eliminate school property taxes, fund our schools with income taxes. Bonisic has proposed county by county. This is where I come in, because I'm testing the waters to see how you feel. Bonisic, for a decade or two, has proposed a county-by-county plan where school property taxes will be eliminated for homeowners, for primary residences, and basically schools will be funded county by county by income tax. And so people might be able to pay their school property tax. I'm just floating that because even though I'm a county legislator, people complain to me justifiably and understandably all the time about school property taxes. That's the only thing I was going to say. The state budget is going to be done very soon, so I urge you to check out the Fiscal Policy Institute website, fiscalpolicy.org, and there's a toll-free number to reach the governor and state legislators. It's 877-255-9417. 4 years ago, a huge hole was blown in the millionaire's tax so that people who make between $500,000 a year and $2 million a year, they got a huge break. So one of the ways that we could actually get more money from municipalities like Rhinebeck, because there's been a 75% cut over the last 30 years as far as aid, and incentives to municipalities. Right now, it's only $715 million to municipalities across the state. That's a 75% cut over the last 30 years. So check out fiscalpolicy.org. And that's it. I'm doing forums here at Rhinebeck Town Hall in the next month, Wednesday, March 11th at 5:30 p.m., Tuesday, March 24th at 5:30 p.m. Next Repair Cafe, I believe, if it's okay with you guys, is going to be Saturday, March 28th, noon to 4 p.m. And thank you for your patience. And don't throw eggs and tomatoes at me. I may not be able to be here if you go to just one meeting a month, because the second Monday of each month is when the county legislature meets, and I know there are hundreds and thousands of people just rely on these monthly reports, but maybe I'll ask.
County legislator meets once a month?
Yeah, the full board meeting is the second Monday, but I'll have to ask, maybe you guys can take
The county
turns.
runs on one meeting a month. I think Bruce has a question.
Well, we have committee day, which is the first Thursday, yes.
And that's open to the public?
I would appreciate it if you could, the next time you come here, you could give us a list of the things that the county does for Rhinebeck, that they actually do. The reason I'm asking that is because the county taxes are shifting. The allocation of taxes is moving around. Places like Poughkeepsie are picking up less of the bill, and we're picking up more of the bill. And so I'd like to know.
Are you saying that the mill rate seems to be different in different areas?
No, the mill rate's the same. The assessments have changed significantly, and I just want to see how it plays out, because we could give some stuff potentially to the county, because we may be paying more than we should be.
You mean have the county take over some services?
Yeah, yeah. But I want to know what they think
All right,
they do for us.
I'll get into that. I'll get into that when I make a presentation at the next workshop meeting. I'm just trying to be funny.
I'm serious, though.
No, I'm going to look into it. It's funny because the folks in the city of Poughkeepsie kind of have understandably and justifiably been screaming bloody murder over, and I know the town supervisor here is understandably upset, the sales tax revenue sharing formula that the county executive initiated a few years ago. I have people calling into my Saturday morning radio show calling him El Duce. You know, the city of Poughkeepsie has really taken it on the chin. But it's like basically all that money that was kind of stolen from Rhinebeck Clinton.
It wasn't stolen, it was legally done. It really hurt us. I don't think we should say stolen because,
I will never say it again.
I mean, well, think about it. You know, we're saying that the county stole from the town, and I don't think that's accurate. I don't
Joel
agree
said it.
with it. You know, I'm the biggest.
I
One of the
apologize.
squeakiest
I
wheels in
apologize.
the county of an elected supervisor. You know, Marcus is tired of hearing from me, but it was a significant cut. It hurt us. The grants that we're supposed to make up for it are incredibly difficult. They're time-consuming. We don't have the luxury of being able to decide what we use the money for. We have to apply for grants, and those are being sunsetted. So it was our tax cap. So we lost 45,000 and more as our revenue grows, and we have a healthy revenue here. We have a vibrant community where people shop. In the village, certainly more so than Rhinebeck.
I've been a squeaky wheel too, but I will never use that verbiage
Yeah,
again. I'm
just say be
sorry.
mindful of it. I don't-
But in that connection, I guess, beside finding out the information Bruce asked for, I guess I'd like to know how much money we really lost by the,
$45,000.
and if you measure that against the grants that we got,
The,
seems to me we might have gotten a lot more in.
would we have spent the money on a paver, or would we have spent them, you know,
Well,
I would rather, the amount of time that I and Alan put into this, it was tens and tens and tens of hours of work and jumping through hoops. It was another level of government that we had to go through to get money that didn't allow us to decide how we wanted to fund it. It was how they wanted us to spend it. And it's being sunsetted. It's over. So we're not coming out ahead. We're losing.
Well, if I can talk, if we lost 45,000, I think we.
Per year.
Per year.
Per year, and more every year.
Could
as the
I
economy
just try
gets
to finish my
healthier.
sentence, please?
Go ahead.
More than a sentence, maybe a paragraph.
No, a sentence.
You got to take a vote on that. I think one grant that you got for the equipment was about 80,000.
$70,000.
How much, 70?
70,000.
And the.
It was for the village as well.
And the municity grant was about the same. And when you say
Park
the
was
paver,
100.
we were forced to get a paver. Presumably we wanted a.
You would rather
we wanted to go in.
get grants than have our sales tax, and the grants are being sunsetted.
All I'm saying is, we ought to see how much we were quote-unquote shortchanged or not. Maybe we benefited. There certainly was a shift from the town of Poughkeepsie. And that, at least was advanced to me as one of the justifications. So I'd be kind of interested in doing a tally.
County
as
has
to
an
what
analysis.
came out.
All right, so I'm going to find out, what is the county doing now for Rhinebeck? What has it done recently and doing now?
What services does it provide in Rhinebeck?
I mean, besides plowing?
No, everything, including plowing.
There's the Dutchess County Office for the Aging Senior Friendship Center over at
Whatever,
the
Joel,
Catholic
whatever.
Church, which should be 5 days a week instead of 4 days a week. All right, I'm going to find out that. And you also want me to find out the potentialities for shared services
No.
between county and town? No,
No.
no.
All we want to do is, we want to know what the county does for us, and then we can look and say, okay, we get this percentage of the expenses, and we're paying this percentage of the taxes. Is this fair?
And also find out, is the town of Poughkeepsie getting away with,
No.
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 No, how much, is this what I asked? You're trying to?
I thought somebody might have said, but something about the town of
No,
Poughkeepsie.
not town of
Okay.
Poughkeepsie. What I would like to know is how much we would have gotten if the allocation of sales tax was not changed, and
Okay.
compare that to the amount in grants.
Just so
that
you know,
we
back in November, I actually asked the county budget office, like, detailed information about this. I did not get a response, but I'll ask him again. All right, thank you for your patience, and I'll get back to you guys.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss a particular employment history of a person, to discuss collective bargaining, and discuss two particular individuals.
Are we taking action?
No, I have to bring you up to date on two things.
So we can let these guys go?
We can say goodnight. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, thank you.
Okay.